Jesus, joined by Lynn Szymanski, and on this episode of Behind the Barn, we're sitting down with U.S. show jump rider Karl Cook. Before we get underway, let me properly introduce Karl and some of his career accolades. Ranking amongst his most notable Grand Prix wins are the Hampton Classic in 2022, American Gold Cup, the $1 million Coachella Cup, Major League Show Jumping Top Individual Rider title in 2023, the CSA 5-star Rolex Grand Prix of Rome in 2024, and of course, his contribution to helping Team USA win silver at the Olympic Games in Paris last summer. But before we get started, we want to quickly thank our sponsor of this episode of Behind the Barn, Shires. Shires specializes in apparel and equipment especially suited for the equestrian of all levels. And with all that said, we now get to officially welcome Karl Cook to Behind the Barn. Karl, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Well, you unfortunately aren't able to make this year due to last-minute change in plans, but since you know the venue and fellow competitors so well, we still wanted to have you on and are excited to do so. Can you give our eventing enthusiasts a bit of a Cliff Notes version of what the format is and what they should expect to see in the Kentucky International CSI 5-star, also, of course, a leg of the Split Rock Jumping Tour?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot similar to 3-day. We have a warm-up day where we get to see the arena. Then instead of us going into the 3 different pieces of 3-day eventing, we then go into a qualifier class, if you will, for the Grand Prix. That's bigger than the warm-up, and that kind of sets the order and how the horses are feeling for the arena, because it's quite an arena during the 5-star, and gets everyone up to speed before they have a day off, and then they have the Grand Prix.
Would you say that, usually when you guys are at an event, it's just a show jumping going on, or most often? So coming to something like Kentucky, I mean, there's a lot going on and a lot of distractions and a lot of rogue eventers running around the place. So is that different or similar?
I mean, of course it's different. I think, there's few horse shows that have this many people on it that come to it on a yearly basis. So just on a spectator side, it's unique for us. And, there really aren't that many eventers at the show itself. Like, if you just talk about, horse count, there aren't that many. So it's not like you've got all these horses coming hot and fast and whatnot. And they do keep us kind of not sequestered, but, you need to have, a couple of dressage courts for warming up for the dressage test. You need some different things that are specific to the eventers. And so us show jumpers, we have one warm-up ring that is separate from the eventers. And, there's plenty of rings there in Kentucky, and I think it makes it easier so that all the competitors can have what they need for when it's time for them to compete. Yeah, for sure. All right, Lynn, well, I'm turning it over to you now for some fun.
Yeah, so I deal with a little last-minute change of plan or disappointment with humor usually. So we're gonna start it off with a few just lighthearted questions. Do you have any superstitions or rituals, especially before big competition?
Not really. I generally take a nap, but outside of that, there aren't any. For me, if I feel superstitious, then I don't feel prepared. But I know that's just my own feeling, and it's not a. If other people have them, then that's great.
Has there ever been a big wardrobe malfunction, either from yourself or horse-wise, that you can remember in recent history?
Actually, a couple years back, I was riding in the rain, and I don't know why this happens, but riding pants get a lot weaker in the rain. And so I didn't blow the seam out my back, which is probably what you're expecting me to say. But I blew the seam up the front of both of my thighs.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Air conditioner.
Quite high up my thighs. So that was, and actually I didn't blow the seam. It was just straight in the middle because so you could see a lot of upper thigh. Just a lot.
So has that changed your choice in what you're wearing in undergarments since then, or protection?
I think it doesn't necessarily change what I wear. It's more I maybe retire white pants earlier before they get to that.
And what was the last thing you cooked?
Ooh, that's a fun one. You have good timing on this one. I made traditional lamb barbacoa in a barbacoa pit at my farm
heck
for
yes.
everyone at the farm.
Okay,
Wow.
so that's where to go for dinner. I'm just taking
Yeah.
notes for
Yeah,
life.
about 60 pounds of lamb
Perfect.
cooked overnight.
This is in my next 5 questions
Yeah.
of life. Perfect. So, Carl, there's a lot of excitement in store for Kentucky enthusiasts this year, obviously. There'll be several opportunities for fans in the Rolex Stadium throughout the week. And of course, we have Defender Kentucky 3-day event taking place. As I said earlier, it's not often that both sports come simultaneously at the very top levels. So, for a handful of event riders crossing over to pure show jumping, we're seeing that a little bit now. But would you ever consider going cross country at the top level? And what seems to be the most impressive or terrifying thing about it?
3-day eventers and show jumpers are just wired differently.
Yeah. I would
100%
agree.
Show jumpers
agree.
are like,
Would agree
oh
with
yeah,
that.
show jumping course, no problem. Like, yeah. But a cross country course, no way. And then a cross country, 3-day event rider is like, oh yeah. Cross country, no problem. Show jumping, heck no.
Yeah, no,
100%.
I mean,
I think it's just-
I 100% agree with you.
What you're used to, but I don't think it's one is more of a challenge or more terrifying than the other. I think it's just what you're used to.
Yeah, I like that.
Right, I agree.
So, when did you know that horses would be in your life full time and as part of your career?
I mean, I rode growing up. We had horses in the backyard. Growing up, my mom rode. My mom showed. And so it was easy for me to ride because, I went to the trainer she trained with. And I didn't have to, walk uphill both ways for 5 miles to the barn to clean stalls. Like, it wasn't one of those stories. It was just, I went to ride 3 days a week. It was fun. I could also do sports. And the trainer that I had a really competitive pony jumper, and they just let me rip, go as fast as possible. And
Yeah.
if I fell off because I went too fast, they never tried to slow me down. They just said,
Dang.
they said why it didn't work and then let me work through it. And so it was fun initially.
Yeah.
It wasn't too serious. It wasn't mechanical. They taught me to jump by setting an X and saying, jump. There was no more pretext to it. But then as time went on and, I was successful in my junior and young rider careers, and, it was kind of just one thing led to another. And then it was like, became more intellectually interesting, I think, as time went on. And that, I think, is what has really kept me and held me, is that it's intellectually interesting as opposed to just, fun to run down the fences and, see what you can do.
Yeah, I love that. It's matured as you've matured. Do you find being on the West Coast, how do you manage being based on the West Coast, competing a lot east and competing overseas in Europe?
I mean, it's more challenging. There's more
Yeah.
travel involved. I think the shows on the West Coast are getting better. Just like if you look at the number of FEI start events, and I'm sure it's probably similar for 3-day eventers as well. If you look at East Coast and the West Coast, I know for show jumping, there's definitely getting more on both coasts.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. I still have to travel. But traveling to Europe compared to the East Coast is honestly not that much different. It's
I'm laughing
5
because I live on the West Coast as well.
Yeah.
So
we're
Both far.
when we fly to the East Coast, we drive the horses to LAX, and they fly to wherever we're going on the East Coast. When we go to Europe, we drive them to LAX, and they fly to Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And it's just a 5-ish hour longer flight is really the difference. So for them, it's not that much harder, but we're fortunate that we're able to do almost all of it by flying, even if we're going to the East Coast. If we were driving all those legs, that would be harder, or you'd stay longer. Instead of us, we can kind of, we go to Florida for 4 weeks and then fly home.
And then talk to me a little bit about your strengths and weaknesses that you see as yourself as a competitor and as a horseman. So where do you see your strengths and weaknesses in the day-to-day stuff at home? And then what do you see on the field of play is kind of, in your pocket is something that gives you an edge and something you continue to work on?
I have no weaknesses. No.
Solidly perfect.
He's evolving.
Thank you very much. I'm an adult. I read a lot and I'm good to roll.
I think on weaknesses, I can be prone to get frustrated. And then sometimes that drives you the right way and sometimes it doesn't. That's gotten better over time because I want to be good and I want to win, and I get very frustrated and irritated if something doesn't go my way, or the way that I expected. I think that's a big one. One, I think some people think of me is not a good trait, but I don't really agree, is that I'm maybe a bit louder than others, especially in show jumping. But I think the more open we are, the better it is.
And you mean louder in a public forum situation? Yeah. Okay.
In a public way.
Yep.
And what I wear in the ring way. I think they would prefer me to be critical only in private and only to a very small, only the tiny people that should be involved. And I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if that harms me, but I think that's definitely something people feel about me. Other weaknesses, I mean, I never know enough, and I wish there was, I'm looking over the back of my computer is all my my area where all my horse books are, and there's plenty I haven't read enough of. And
but I think you're going to make that into a strength, though.
there's always more to learn, and I'm definitely, I definitely don't know enough yet. I think strengths, I'm good at finding good people to work with that help me in those areas where I might not know enough, or I might need, you need a really good, why can't I think? You need a really great groom or grooms for your horses. You need really great support people, vets, farriers, dentists, trainers, and I've been pretty good at finding ones that have been able to, do a great job and been able to work with them for a long time. I've had my trainer for, what year is it? Oh gosh, 14 years now.
Wow.
Or no, 12 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've had the same vet for the same amount of time. And I think when I show, I'm tough, which maybe yields that frustration that we talked about earlier. But the tough part, I might not be successful, but I don't do it because of cracking under pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's good answers.
If you could trade places with any other athlete in your sport, who would you pick and why?
I don't know if I could pick anyone, because it would be like I would want to be that person while they had that horse at that place
for a day. How about if we turn the tables on you, and how about if you had to just go complete 180 and you had to trade places for a day with an athlete from any other sport other than equestrian sports, who would you pick and why?
Oh, it'd probably be a Formula One driver.
Okay, fair.
That would just
Which one? Do you want Max? Who do you want?
No. I'd pick Lando or Oscar.
Okay.
Well, because also right now they have the best car,
Yeah, that's kind of cheating, but we'll give it to you.
Same with I want to ride a certain person's
You
horse.
just want to trade places with whoever has the best horse and then
Yeah.
the best car. So that's fair.
When you're at a big competition and you have a night class and you have just one horse there, two horses there, what do you do to occupy yourself during the day?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I try to sleep in the morning because that wastes some time. Normally, it's we're up early riding, and then I ride. We make sure everything's the way it needs to be for the show later, and then I'll probably go to lunch, and I'll go take a nap, and then I'll probably read until it's time to go back to the show.
Okay, so show jumpers notoriously dress very fancy or their own unique way and are camera ready on course walks. That's something you guys don't necessarily share with eventers. Sometimes we look a little bit like slobby, you could call it, I would say.
Yep. Yeah,
Nobody's filming them in the walk. It's a quick hustle and get it done. Do you plan your outfits ahead of time? And tell us more about that.
So every time I've gone to Kentucky to show during the event, I've always dressed up for the jog. I've always dressed up for the jog because it's something eventers do.
I love that.
And like 3-piece suit, like the whole, like I do the whole thing.
Yes, I love that. Okay.
And I'm sure Derek has pictures of some of the previous things I've worn. And I don't necessarily want to do that at every show, but it's really fun to do at the Kentucky 5-star, and I like that. It's harder for us a little bit. No, I don't plan out my outfits, but it's harder for us because we're kind of hustling a lot at a lot of our shows, where if we're jogging, and I always jog all my horses, and I'm one of the only riders who actually does that. Most of them have their grooms do it. They run in, jog their horse, and leave and go do something else, or they're walking their course after they've run from another ring, or they walk and then they run to another arena. So it's a little bit busier. When I was younger, I used to actually, and I still have all of them, I used to do all sorts of fun hunt coats, and I would match them with a bow tie.
This.
And they were great. I loved them. And at the time, they were super not allowed, so I had to have special permission from like the head jumping director at the FBI to get the stewards off my back. That was fun. And now they've loosened the rules, so most of the stuff I was doing is now legal. But when I was doing it, it wasn't. Yeah, I had fun with that.
Next time you're competing at Kentucky, I think you should try and do an outfit change with one of our riders, which we have a few of our male riders that have changed suits from our first jog to our second jog. So, then you get a who wore it best. Maybe you could really be a trendsetter.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
So what would be one thing that people would be surprised to learn about you behind the scenes? And what do you think, to piggyback on that, one of the biggest misconceptions is about kind of your social media personality versus your at-home personality, or are they very similar?
I think I've been pretty open about how I am more than most people have. And for me, what you see on social media is how I am. If you speak to me in person, I'll speak to you exactly the same way. I think that still is surprising to people, even now after as much time as I've been, putting out what I've been putting out. I don't know. I think they would probably still be surprised at the level of detail that everyone in my team works in, and how we can see changes in those tiny details because the rest of the system is so consistent. Where most people, they see that tiny detail and they go try to do that, but they don't see any effect because their base system is too variable.
Right.
And so then they think that those tiny details don't matter, when actually they do. it's just they don't matter until you do so much of these other things consistently.
Absolutely.
Well, reflecting on the Olympics and an incredible year last year, obviously, what are your next goals and what do those look like? Like, what now for you?
Well, I mean, it'd be great to be in a place for the World Games next year in Aachen.
Yep.
And then, of course, the next games are in LA. And that's not just home Olympics because it's in the US, but it's, an hour and a half north of me.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool to do an Olympics at home.
Definitely.
Pretty good goal. We talked a little bit about human nerves, but horses get a lot of nerves as well, and especially in some of these high atmosphere classes and the classes at night. Talk to us a little bit about how you've managed some of your horses' nerves and what you do, maybe a little different than some of your other competitors to try and get the best out of each horse.
One of my favorite studies is stupidly simple, but perfect. They had a person just holding a horse and jogging, and they just said, okay, just jog. And they had a heart rate monitor on the human and on the horse. And they did that a bunch of times. And they took the same handlers and same horses and said, okay, do that again. But at some point while you're jogging, there's going to be a really scary person jumping out to spook your horse. Now, obviously, they didn't actually do that. They were just telling the handlers that they were doing that. Now, the horse doesn't know that because the horse, obviously doesn't know what the human was just told. However, they could measure the heart rate rise in the humans and correspond that with a similar heart rate rise, percentage-wise, in the horse. But again, the horse had no fucking clue. Mm-hmm. Sorry for swearing. So it was a beautiful example of how the horse has no idea in that case. You can't say it's because of situationally the horse
that's actually
stopped.
so interesting.
Yeah.
It was just so basic.
I've never heard
and
that.
I think that's the biggest thing is you need to control what you are emoting to your horse.
Yeah.
And is that why you choose to jog your own horses? Did you have an incident? Is that just something that...
No, I mean, that one's just more because I don't want to be doing something else and a groom says, oh, we didn't pass the jog.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, why? And I didn't actually see it.
Right.
Or, maybe they jogged it too fast
it's like
or too
another
slow.
variable that you can handle.
Exactly.
For sure.
And it's so critical because it can make your show, it can explode your show week. So why obsess over, what boots you're going to use on your horse when you don't even make it into the show?
Yep. For sure.
You got to do those base things first. But then on top of that, understanding what your horse's triggers are, because generally it's not like, oh, the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Well, you can't change that. So it will be, oh, when there is more atmosphere, they're more prone to be spooking at traffic. Mm-hmm. Or I have a mare who will leap into the air when the crowd claps. Like if someone jumps clear before me and everyone goes, oh my God, she will leap into the air. So if I know that's about to happen, I will go to the opposite end of the warm-up ring and it's just figuring out those things and not making a big deal out of it, not trying to stop it, just trying to, because if you try to stop it, you'll just make it worse.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's something every discipline can use as great advice.
And also, do we want a horse that's completely numb and doesn't give any care? No, we don't want that. So you gotta be okay with that your horse is a little bit more animated because it takes that animation to do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm,
so
sure.
or what you want.
Yeah. No.
Unless they're like you and they take a nap and then, they just come out ready to party.
Then we're like, hello, good morning. Well, we have a quick mini game, so we want to play 2 truths and a lie with you, Karl.
Love that.
You've prepared 2 truths and a lie about yourself, and Lynn and I are going to guess which are the truths and which one is the lie, more importantly. We will preface this by saying we're pretty bad at this game, so we're going to see how good of a poker face you have, and we're going to ask some follow-up questions so you can throw all 3 at them.
So, I love fiction. I'm building a distillery in Kentucky, and I've never broken a bone riding.
Okay, I'm gonna ask some follow-up questions. Is the distillery located like downtown or on the outskirts?
That shouldn't matter.
I'm ready to make my guess.
Okay, make your guess.
I'm going to go with fiction. Is
I'm
the
gonna
lie.
say he's never broken a bone.
I have never broken a bone.
Yes, I
She won. That's all right.
Thank you.
Which is a truth. The lie, you were correct. I hate fiction. Or actually, no, I said I love fiction. But
Oh
I
no!
hate
So
fiction.
it's the lie that's the winner. So you have broken a bone.
Shoot. I said
Did
I
you
have
give us
never
two?
broken a bone.
You gave
That's
us
the
two
truth.
lies.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I have
okay.
never broken a bone,
Okay.
and I'm building a distillery in Kentucky.
So I did win.
Okay.
I did win,
You did
Frankie.
win.
I'm sorry.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I got so
If
excited.
you had picked up on like what a sponge he is for knowledge through the beginning of this, you would have picked up that maybe he didn't love fiction as much as.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
I hate
Thank you
fiction.
very
It's
much.
useless. Waste of time.
Also
You'll get
passed
better
my
one day.
pay grade of
well
the
done.
reading.
Well done. Those were
and the
good
Cliff
impromptu
Notes.
ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to switch gears, and we feel like the fans have the best questions. So we have a few for you from the audience. The first one is from Stella from New York. She mailed in the question, what has been your most embarrassing hospital visit or way you have been eliminated?
Does falling off count?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't have my girth tight enough. And I'm sure plenty of people have done this, but when my saddle started to go, it was over A of a double in a combination. And so it started to go over A, then kept going in between A and B.
Wow.
And then there's a picture of me on the side still holding on over B, and then I sort of hit the fence with my body because I'm falling off over B.
That one's pretty good, Lynn.
I mean, it might not have been... At the time, I wasn't really embarrassed because it was so dramatic, and I was younger, and I thought it was kind of cool. Although my trainers and my parents did not agree with that
Well, I like that one. I think that's pretty notable fact about Karl.
So for eventers who went to the Paris Olympics as well, who's going to be your pick out of these guys? Boyd Martin, Tim Price, Tom McEwen, or Michaela Young?
I mean, I know Boyd, so I want him to win. But I don't know if he's got what his horse is like. So, I mean, he obviously has won everything that he's won, but you still need the horse. I don't know eventing well enough.
See, that's what we
So
were
we're going to go
wondering.
with Boyd.
We're going to go with Boyd.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's why we had to give you some names.
Boyd will like that. Okay. All right. Well, Kelly from Florida asked, which is harder, jumping clean in a Grand Prix or figuring out how to pack a hay net properly?
Problem that most people have with the old school one is after it has been eaten, they don't store it correctly, so then they have to re-sort it out. You need to fold that thing.
I also have that problem,
So-
yes.
So that you actually know what's what, and you have to like piece through it for 10 minutes before you understand it. So if you could just do that part, then it's fine.
Okay,
can
so
just
the hay net or the
put it in a
Grand
muck-
Prix?
I think we got our answer.
Hay net.
All right. Well, Karl, before we let you go, talk to the audience a little bit, but what is so special competing in that Rolex Stadium, especially at night?
It's the fans that are watching it. Because they could build the exact same stadium, but if no one's watching it, then cool, it's just a big metal building. But it's not just how many people that are watching it, but how many people that are actually educated and interested and excited to watch the event. You know, they're there with you. They're not like they're golf clapping or, you know, cheering midway through your round because they don't know what's happening, but they're there and they're excited. Like, they actually know about horses, they care about horses, and I think the vast majority of them, you know, spend a significant amount of time around horses, and you can really tell that, and it's just great being in that environment.
Yeah, and it's pretty special to have that leg of the Split Rock Tour in that stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Well, we are very excited to watch that all unfold this year. We thank you, Karl Cook, for taking the time to join us because we know you're very busy. And for our viewers, don't forget to share this episode with your friends, family, and anyone else you can think of. A huge thanks to Shires for sponsoring the episode of Behind the Barn, and on behalf of my co-host, Lynn Szymanski, and myself, I'm Frankie Terry-Stoots. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.